Well, I have a doozy of a question to answer today. Actually, it's two questions, which is exciting. One of them is, as a father, someone asked in the comments. Comment section is actually where I get a lot of my conversation pieces. If you guys want to ask me questions there, it's actually a lot easier for me if you ask me the questions in the Discord. And so I'll answer the Discord question first because I think it's a much longer conversation, and then we'll finish it up with the question that was asked in the comments section. Steam Deck. The question that was asked in the Discord was more about, my opinions on the digital versus physical stuff that's happening. All digital, all physical, all that going down in the next, 10 years. Because we're seeing stuff like PlayStation and Xbox, all these, especially with Xbox at Series S, going in this all-digital future. People are complaining about the all-digital future. PC gamers have been there. They kind of led the way on the all-digital thing for a while. But the question was, how do I feel about it? And I at first felt very, very uncomfortable about the idea of losing access, or not losing access, but going all digital, because it seems like you don't own anything. But then I was doing more research on what exactly these physical games that we have, what does that look like? Are they actually ours? Do we own them? And with the exception of stuff like Nintendo, because they give us cartridges, even though you do still have to update stuff, we're looking at stuff like PlayStation, the discs, which they don't hold the whole game in some cases. It's just a physical access key, and then you have to go and download the day one update. And once you have that day one update, then you pretty much have the rest of the game. And in a lot of instances, you have to go and download the rest of the game on day one, which is crazy to me. You have the game on the disc, which apparently has been a thing for a while. So the idea of owning a physical game starts to get a little bit weird when you really think about it. Now, people are freaking out all over the place, rightfully so, because it seems like you are losing your ownership. You're spending, upwards of 70, sometimes 80, even more for deluxe editions, and you're not even actually using you're not even gaining the permanence of your ownership. I know there's been conversation online around different creators talking about how PlayStation is doing things when it comes to the physical and digital world, and revealing that even physically they can control the way that you interact with it, whether you can own it, or whether you own it, or you even are given access to sell it, or stuff like that. I think that story got blown out of proportion, but really what it comes down to is, when it comes to ownership, do we as gamers actually own the very games that we hold? Right? Final Fantasy 16 steel case, the whole thing. I have this special edition. Do I own this? Is this really mine? And if I do, great. This all digital future, is it actually a better option when it comes to ownership? Do you have a more preserved title because you have this digital version that is seemingly untouchable when it comes to the game itself? I know some people, I don't know if it's an age thing or if it's, just I guess generational, so age. But I know for me, right, so like growing up with Super Nintendo, Nintendo N64, all these different Nintendo devices, as well as PlayStation or stuff like that, I'm looking at the cartridges, right? I found my SP, by the way, if you guys were watching the last video. It was actually just there the whole time. It was blended in because it's red against red. But I have my SP here. I take out this cartridge. I have Pokemon, is this Leaf Green? Leaf Green! This cartridge works! This cartridge is what I found out to be a reproduction, so it's not really an old one. But if it was an old one, with the exception of save batteries, which is, something to talk about, I guess. But with the exception of save battery, it still works. The whole game is here. But that's a thing of the past. This game was much smaller, much less demanding, and the hardware that utilized this game, or used this game, was also a lot smaller, was a lot less powerful, did not need as much attention when it came to preservation of that hardware itself. It just works. Can you update this? Sure, you just put, different mods in here, but this is original hardware. But this right here just works. We're now in a very different age. The games are on discs. Those discs are, I would consider to be far more fragile. They're affected by heat. They're affected, which, maybe the cartridges are affected by heat too, but they're affected by a lot of things. They can easily be misplaced, much like cartridges can. And there are a lot of external factors that go into the, for lack of a better term, longevity of something like a physical game. The physical game itself. I know that holding the game gives you this sense of ownership, and it very well is probably more of an ownership, I guess, than an older title, or not older, a digital title. But is it really yours to own? The point that was made in the Discord was more along the lines of, with digital titles, you technically, I guess, don't own the digital title because you have to have it through whatever, like Steam or Epic, or it has to be supported. Or even if you own a digital title on, on a PlayStation, you have to go and make sure that store supports the downloads. We're seeing stores close down. We're seeing the different access to different things happen. Do you still own it? Can you still access it? And I could be wrong here, but I don't think I am. I think that these stores closing down they still allow access, even after you can't purchase stuff anymore, allow access for you to re-download those games. Will those stores be around forever? Absolutely not. They won't be around forever, but they'll probably be around for a long time. At least I'm hoping they'll be around for a long time. But I can tell you that I have not misplaced, but I have had more games break on me. Honestly, I have had more games break on me in my years of being a gamer, which is 3 decades at this point, than I have had digital games losing access to them. I don't know if that works so well, but I still haven't had my first cup of coffee, so forgive me. But I want you to hear that again. I've had more games get misplaced or break on me in the past 3 decades of gaming than I have had digital games being removed from my library and no longer being able to be played. That, I think, is something to think about. Is an all-digital future lame? I've always said, yeah, it's lame, it's stupid, you don't own anything, whatever, but I just don't know. I don't know, really, if that ownership that you have nowadays with a physical game, like Guardians of the Galaxy, or, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, I'm just looking at my physical games here, when you have to download a day one patch that is 10, 15, 20 gigs, and then all these different things, when you have to do that update, if that game itself actually is any better down the line when you want to play it again, right, with preservation. That's the big thing that people seem to want to bring up, is in 10 years when you want to play, I don't know, Wonderlands or something, will you be able to play it if you have a digital one or a physical one? I mean, we'll have to see, right? Games are crazy now when it comes to downloads. Now, we're looking at the PC world of things and bringing that into the conversation and seeing that they've been here for a very, very long time. I don't know if the narrative around PC gaming is similar to the narrative around console gaming, which is it's digital and ownership is questionable, I suppose. I know that there's a lot more to it than just digital versus physical. There's DRM, copyright laws, and all these different things. We're just seeing a very different landscape when it comes to gaming, and I think that as things go on, we have to look at the different factors that have been introduced over these past couple decades since digital gaming has become more and more prevalent. And we're seeing that digital gaming is becoming more and more prioritized, so to speak. Especially because streaming services are becoming more popular, right? And so people not only are purchasing, when it comes to games, less games. I mean, look at Xbox, for example. You don't have to buy games when you own an Xbox. You certainly can, but you don't have to. You can play a truck ton of games through their service without actually purchasing them. And people who have been using Xbox, PlayStation, all these different consoles for years and years and years have been collecting their free downloads over the past X amount of years. I'm being one of them. My PlayStation library is fat because every month I download whatever games are on the PS Plus offering, which some of them are great, a lot of them aren't, but some of them are great, right? Some AAA ones that come out months before, not years, but months before, end up being offered to us as subscribers of that service. And that's a really, really cool thing that exists. But they're digital. Not only are they digital, but they're behind that paywall. And so you got to be a subscriber to that service to even have access to those games. And so this whole digital versus physical future, this whole digital versus physical debacle, so to speak, ends up becoming more and more, I feel like the water gets muddy because at face value, the digital versus physical argument is physical, you own it because you can touch it. Digital, you don't because you can't. And I think that maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that was the case. But as it stands now, I don't know if a physical game that I own up here on the desk, up here on the shelf, that's not Nintendo based, and who knows from there. I don't know if Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, if that physical disc is truly any better to me than the digital purchase that I can make on my PlayStation account. Now, I understand that there are some things there, such as I can take this disc and go over to Chase's house and be like, yo, do you want to play Rift Apart? Pop in the disc, and he now has access to Rift Apart. But I don't know if those days are going to be numbered. And now discs are going to be somehow locked to the very console that you have. I know that PlayStation, for instance, right? Once you purchase the new PlayStation Slim model and you take the disc drive and slap it on your PlayStation model, you are pairing that disc drive to that piece of hardware. Pairing it. You are pairing it. You're not just using something like a USB port. You are actually having the physical hardware recognize this device and its serial number and claiming that this serial number is now a part of this device. Interesting, right? Now, why? I don't know. I haven't looked too far into the reasons why that exists that way, but that is how it works. Is that the future of physical games, where now when you use the code, it is somehow going to recognize it? I don't know, because I think you would have to, at that point, write something on the disc. Is the unique code that's on the disc only going to grant you access to the game here on the device? There is certainly a lot of convenience that exists with having an all-digital library. But does that convenience supersede the real feeling of ownership? And is that real feeling of ownership really changing the game when it comes to, does it change your experience, I suppose? This is what I'm more trying to get at. I know for me that the more I play video games, the more that I have kids, the longer that I'm doing this, the separation between this physical versus digital media kind of world becomes more blurred, and convenience ends up becoming a lot more valuable to me than the idea or the thought of physically holding something, especially when it comes to the way that I play. Now, I'm looking at my Nintendo Switch collection, and I think this is great. It's not that large. It's like 30-something games. This is awesome, some of which aren't even opened. This feels good. The resale value one day might be great, but I'm not someone who buys to resell. And so there's that. There's also the convenience of being able to resell at like GameStop or something. There's nothing wrong with that if that's the way you go about it. And of course, this conversation isn't really taking into consideration the people who purchase 3 to 4 games at a time, that was me growing up, and then sell those games to be able to afford the next one. Because for that, I would say physical is very valuable because the game can be passed fluidly, right? You can sell it, you can lend it to a friend. This is simply just coming down to ownership, and I think that is what I'm getting at. If that aspect of ownership is unbelievably valuable to you, then there you go, right? Physical is the way that you're going to want to go as long as it's available, which I don't think it's going to be available for much longer. I give it another 10 years at most. I certainly don't think physical only is going to be necessary. I think the way that we play video games right now, there's a false sense of physicality. The physical game exists, but we're not able to play that physical game all by itself. And it's because of the size of the games, the amount of updates that are needed, and unfortunately, the fact that games are delivered incomplete nowadays, and it takes months to get the actual true version out of that game. Not to mention DLC that now exists. You're given a game that feels about 70% done, and then you purchase $15 to $20 worth of additional content to give you the 100% experience. Unfortunately, you purchase your Pokemon game. You can purchase Pokemon Scarlet, whatever the names of those silly games are, and you can purchase it with the DLC as a full package. Go to Target. Scarlet with all DLC. The DLC is a code inside the flap. It's not additional stuff that's installed on the hardware. It's an actual download code that then downloads it to your device. This physical versus digital thing is, I think we're at a point now where unfortunately we are digital. It's just where we're at. Physical still exists, but I don't think it's what it always was. Actually, I am gonna say this. It's not what it used to be. It's not. And so there's a consideration that needs to take place. And to answer the person's question on Discord, which was, do I think one is better than the other? I think with the exception of being able to physically change hands, take this thing and say, here is the copy, give me $7 for it, or here, borrow it, or let my kid use it. With the exception of sharing and selling games that are physical, digital is better. I don't think ownership exists physically anymore. I think that the ownership question is out. And Nintendo might be the last dying breed. I don't know if the future of Nintendo is all digital. They really want you to go digital. They offer all their games at a discounted rate because of their vouchers, which is all digital. They don't allow you to go buy 2 physical vouchers and get 2 physical games. They want you to go digital. They absolutely want you to go digital. And I'm going to come out and say, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I really don't. I really don't. I don't think it's as bad as people think it's going to be. Physical versus digital, I think that we're past it. I think that physical games are just physical. They're a facade. I don't even think they're real. I don't think that any of my PlayStation games on here have the full game on it. And so in 15 years, if I keep my PlayStation 5 and I throw the disc in, will it run solely off the disc? If I don't have internet access, can I play this game? And I think the answer to that is no. With Nintendo Switch, with the GameCube, with the Wii, you can, which is cool. But PlayStation and Xbox, you can't. And with PC, you really can't. And so, we've passed it, I think. We're in 2023. If you watch this in 2024, which is only, good Lord Almighty, 11 days away. I guess 12 technically. We are past the physical versus digital conversation. We are digital. Physical exists, but we're digital right now. Am I wrong here? Let me know. I really would like to know. How off base am I? Let me know in the comments or on Discord. So the comment that was in YouTube was between the Steam Deck and the Nintendo Switch. Which one would I choose if I could only choose one? If I chose the Steam Deck, would I miss out on Nintendo Switch titles? And would it be something that I would be able to deal with? The answer for you is, if I was doing it, it would be, without question, the Nintendo Switch OLED. I have far less interest in every other title out there than I do Nintendo first-party titles. I am far more interested in Mario and Zelda than I am in Resident Evil, God of War, heck, even Final Fantasy. I am a Mario fan. I am a Zelda fan. I am a Nintendo fan. Through and through. Nintendo is my number one. And so when it comes to which one I would choose the Switch OLED any day of the week. It is less powerful, less capable, more closed. The games are not as versatile. The Nintendo Switch has very, very few things that it has on top, or that it can take the lead when it comes to the comparison. But I would choose the Nintendo Switch OLED. There are just so many games on there that you can play that you can't play on the Steam Deck legally, okay? And the legal thing is a huge part. I am not an emulation guy when it comes to titles that are available for purchase. I do not do that. So I know that you can get Steam, you can get your Switch emulated on the Steam Deck. People do it. I'm not a fan of it, and I'm not going to do it. And so that's the way that I would go. If I went Steam Deck, the only reason why I would say go Steam Deck over Nintendo is if you haven't been a Nintendo Switch user, if you haven't been using Nintendo products, if you aren't a fan of the franchises the way that I am or someone else is, then you should go Steam Deck. Because Steam Deck has so much more for you. So many more first-party titles. It runs great. You have the versatility of having desktop mode, as well as you can do things, plug it into the dock that they have, or a dongle, or whatever you want to do. The versatility and the power that's there, and it's a very impressive machine. And if you're a PC gamer, then you have access to all of your Steam library that is available on your Steam Deck. Because not all games are created equal, and some just don't run well. So your experience isn't going to be the best. But when it comes to first-party Nintendo titles, I can't live without them. In my gaming world, if someone came in here and said, you can never play video games again because of X, Y, and Z, I'd be like, okay, fine, whatever. It's not that important to me. But I, as someone who has access to video games and can play video games, Nintendo does take the front seat. Every night, I play some Mario, Zelda, whatever it may be. I'm not always playing my Steam Deck or my PlayStation 5. PlayStation 5 pretty much is only getting used to play Final Fantasy 16 the second time through and Fortnite, if I'm being honest with you. And then once I have my PC build, Fortnite's going over to the PC. Controller PC. That's the way I'm going to go. But as it stands now, I cannot live without Nintendo. So I hope that answers your question. I think that budgetarily, Nintendo seems like it's a more affordable option, and in some ways it can be. Steam always has sales, but I've made this joke for people, not joke, but I've made this comment to people. It's a lot easier to spend $10 20 times than it is to spend $60 4 times. And so it's at the end of the day, I feel like people spend more money on Steam buying games they don't need just because they're on sale than they do on console. You're not going to go to the store and be like, I'm going to buy 3 or 4 Nintendo Switch full price titles right now. Or, hey, these Nintendo Switch titles are on sale for $40. I'm going to buy 5 of them. You're not going to do that. But then you go on Steam and you're like, oh, I can buy, Resident Evil 4 remake with all the DLC for $35. I did that. I can buy Resident Evil Village for $18. I'm going to do that. I can buy God of War Ragnarok for $25. I'm going to do that. I'm going to buy Final Fantasy. And you end up at the end of the week spending $160 on sale games. It's just like going to Costco. My dad always makes a joke about it. He goes, I can't afford to save at Costco. You go to Costco to buy 3 things, and you end up leaving spending $479. You get 4 dozen eggs. You get everything else you need, and you're good, but you only had $150 when you went in there. It's that kind of mentality. So I don't think that one is cheaper than the other. I think at the end of the day, gaming is going to be relatively similarly priced if you're purchasing games because of the way that you go about it. $600 for OLED hardware when you're talking about the Steam Deck, and then $10 games, sure. Or $350, and then you buy, between $30 and $60 games depending on the sale, digital or physical, whatever. It ends up evening out. So if you have to pick one, if you like Nintendo titles, Nintendo Switch any day of the week. If Nintendo titles don't mean anything to you, Steam Deck without even batting an eyelash. I hope that helps you guys. Those are the 2 questions I wanted to answer today. We're good to go. Caffeinated, ready to go. Well, I'll see you guys at the next cup, but most of all, happy gaming.